Hello. Let me grab this real quick. Hi, like you mentioned, my name is Subi Ghosh. I'm the Senior Director of Dealer Strategies at Stream Companies. And more than half of my 10-year career in automotive was spent on the dealership side. And it was in internet marketing, responding to internet leads, marketing in general. And then my last GM challenged me to take on a very different role that I was a little skeptical of. He wanted me to be the director of sales and marketing. Now that was a little terrifying for me because GSMs did not really want to listen to me because I've never been in their shoes. And so I took on the role, and in no time at all I found that I saw his big picture. I saw what he was trying to accomplish. How can we put out these marketing messages and tell people that they need to come experience us, come buy from us, when they came in, they couldn't have that experience. So he paired that together, and since then I've been obsessed with culture. So I want to talk to you guys about culture. Why? I think that in our industry, culture seems to be something that we need to focus on. I think we're learning now more than ever before that we have to focus on it, but it seems too difficult. It seems completely out of reach, too difficult, but also not nearly as important as the units we have to sell today and tomorrow and for this month to keep up with all the goals that we have. And I want to convince you that it is exceptionally important, that we have to focus on it, and that it's not as difficult as you would think. And so like the big reasons, I would say, now more than ever before, social media and that social culture that we have about people sharing everything that is important to them makes us want to focus on this, not only for our customers, but for our employees. Then also, turnover is really expensive. And so to hire and recruit and train and doing that all over again because we're missing out on really great quality employees that we end up ushering out the door because we're not focused on our culture, it's way too expensive. And then finally, companies like Carvana are coming into our space. And they're attractive because they're easy, and the experience is a good one. So if we don't focus on these things, we're going to be less relevant, and we need to make sure that the communities know that they need to come do business with us. So when I talk about this, I want to talk about, just so we're clear, culture, there's two parts of it. There's the internal and the external. Internal is your employees and your culture that's going to keep them there, keep them happy, keep them engaged, because happy employees breed happy customers. And then there's your external, which is your community, your customers, the people that you have to convince that you're the place to come do business. Now, these are two separate entities that have different initiatives, but they all still work together because one bleeds into the other. So the first important thing that we have to do is to assess our culture. A lot of the time in our industry, we do things because that's how it's been done. And we end up forgetting that, so when we are in our homes and we have pets or we're smokers, we don't see that there's anything different. It's just home. And our dealerships are much like the same. We're there way more than we want to be sometimes. And we spend so much time in there, we don't see the things that customers see as their first impression. And first impressions are so important to those consumers that have their walls up already, right? So one of the simple things that you can do is a culture walk. I implemented this, made all my managers do it. They were responsible for walking through the dealership as though they were customers and seeing what's out there. And what you find is that sometimes, like on the desk, we have things going on, we seem too busy, it's cluttered, and even little things, like this actually happened, a friend of mine, we have automotive magazines that come to the dealership on our tables, people flip through them while they're waiting for F&I. This particular magazine was bashing our franchise, so ended up having way more questions than we needed to after the deal was already pretty much on its way to get into F&I. So culture walks are important, and a simple thing that you can do to make sure that the customers are seeing what they're supposed to be doing. Salespeople get busy or bored, and they're on their computers watching YouTube videos that maybe they shouldn't be watching, and even if they're not with a customer, maybe somebody else is with a customer and they can see that. So this is a really simple thing, a simple fix that can really impact your culture. And then when you're evaluate fairly. When you're listening, so social media is a great tool to market and engage your customers, but it's also a great tool to listen. Is your community talking about you, even if they don't tag you? If you go to Twitter's advanced search feature, you can look up terms and your name and your city or any of those factors and find out if people are talking about you or maybe talking about other dealerships. It's a great way to engage. But also look for trends as you're looking in social media. Are people happy? Are they saying what they're supposed to be saying about engaging with your store, or are they displeased? Are there themes that are being repeated that maybe the manager that's coming to give you feedback is giving you great feedback because everything's rosy from their perspective, but customers or employees are experiencing something different? So it's a great way to kind of assess your culture on that social platform because everything's so easy to see. But then you want to definitely focus on your front lines to see a lot and they experience a lot. And I'm going to talk about roadblocks in a second. But when you're interviewing your team, like little simple surveys are great. My company does like a weekly survey anonymously. They just ask a random question and people fill out whatever it is that they're feeling. And it's a really great, simple way to keep a pulse on what people are thinking and feeling in that moment. But we also, in our industry, have management through fear. Have we all experienced that? Yes? Management through fear. It's because that's what they were taught is the way that you're supposed to manage someone. We berate, we call people out in public. Things like that don't work for every personality. So by interviewing not only your front lines, but also your management, and assessing them to see if there are themes that are coming out that your employees are responding well to or responding negatively to, then you can be more proactive about it instead of one day opening your eyes and you've lost 10 really great quality employees. So this is a typical structure of a dealership, yes? What ends up happening is that we listen to only a certain point. We're all kind of tiered out and everyone's too busy to talk to everyone. So we get information from the levels either directly above or directly below us. And what ends up happening in the dealership, when I was working in it, I found that the front lines would go to their sales managers. And then if they didn't like those ideas, it wouldn't get anywhere. But those are the people that had the best ideas for our customers. They're the ones that were working with them and speaking with them every single day. So I really encourage you to remove the communication blocks. Simple surveys, like I mentioned, are great tools for this, but so is just getting out there and having those conversations and having kind of an open door policy to allow people to come to you. Open door policies can also backfire. My boss has an open door policy and there's always a line out his door. So you want to definitely make sure you put certain times or something they can come and talk to you. But if you're going to have an open door policy, make sure it's open to everyone. So then I want to talk about creating a strategy, because one of the things that I noticed when I was on the dealership side was that people had great intentions. And so they wanted to say to convince customers in the community to come engage with us, we would say anything. And different levels said what they felt the dealership was. But what ends up happening is a lot of times a customer ends up talking to multiple people in that dealership. And if they're saying completely different stories, it's not a great experience for that customer because it can be really muddled. So on the external side with your community, everyone's got a USP, like a unique selling proposition. Your why buys, does everyone have one? Does anyone not have one? Because you should if you don't. But also review these as you go. Are they tangible? If you have free Wi-Fi and coffee as your why buys, you probably want to revisit that because every single dealership has that, and that's not a unique reason for me to come in and buy from you. So revisit your USPs. Give people real, tangible reasons as to why you are a better place to buy than the same dealership down the street. And then develop a plan. If you don't develop a plan, your teams will get together and develop their own plans and say whatever they feel, which can backfire. And I have been in a situation where it has. So one of my main frustrations is that we function like mom and pop shops, which is great if you want to engage with the community, but we end up in a situation where we're treating these multi-million-dollar companies. Dealerships are multi-million-dollar companies, and we don't put the structure in it that we need, and just a little bit of structure can go a long way. Job descriptions expectations, those things can really help people, because a lot of times we complain that they don't make salespeople like they used to, but we're not training them like we used to. So putting these little things in place where they know their expectations, what they're going to be responsible for, how we're going to measure them, it really makes a huge difference. And simple things like a mission statement, vision statement, strategy, goals and objectives. Who are we? What are we trying to be? How are we going to get there? And how are we going to evaluate that? So this simple little plan, and sometimes we make it really big and we think that it's way too big to come up with these things. Start somewhere and then engage your team, and they'll help you come up and evolve it to whatever they think the company is. Use all the words that they're thinking you are and incorporate it, but start somewhere to give them a place to say, this is who I am, this is how it works. And then reiterate your plan. This is my company. We have simple little taglines. Do the ordinary extraordinarily well. It's kind of everywhere. It's even in our parking lot. And then we have these signs that say, make great things happen. We have core values. And our founder, he'll reiterate this in our meetings. Because as the company grows, as people get bogged down with what they have to do on a daily basis, it's easy to forget. So being able to reiterate these things and making it really simple to understand. Does everyone know who we are, what is expected of you? This simple little thing can really help focus you when everything's running at 100 miles an hour. So this is a dealer that's actually doing it really well. If you don't know of the Frank Myers Auto Mall, you've got to look them up. They do a really great job of explaining to their dealership staff what their role is, what their culture is, and how they're supposed to behave. And if you want me to connect you with dealers that are doing this kind of thing, they have whole sets of things. Reach out to me, and I can definitely get that to you. That's not a problem at all. And then another major problem that we have in our culture today is that we are super, super siloed. A sales customer, do they only work with the sales team, the sales department? Yes? No. They work with sales. They work with sales management. They work with the internet team, likely. They work with the back office eventually to get their paperwork completed. They work with F&I, and hopefully they're doing a service walk to make sure that they're engaged with the service team. That customer is touching all of those departments, and yet we feel super, super protective of our departments, and nobody wants to share anything. Everyone wants to point the finger. And so a great, simple measure is to make sure that these teams know that they have to work together. And that's a lot harder than it seems, but you can also do a few simple things. One of the things that I felt worked is we would have a monthly meeting where all the managers would come together, and we would talk about what's going on in each department, what things we're focused on, what are the things that we're seeing, because each department also has insights to the other department that could really help us grow. So breaking down those silos and bridging those departments together is key. And then, if you feel like they're not coming, get them food. They will show up. And then buy-in. We've all made this mistake. So we get a product that we go to one of these shows, we find really exciting, and we just say, signed, sealed, delivered. This is what it is. Make sure that you adopt it and stick with it and make it work. But we don't often get those front lines, the people that are working with those tools, to give us input on what they're looking for, what's working, what's not working, and be a part of the onboarding with us. That way, when they're bought in and they feel like they're a part of it, it's gonna stick. And we're not just cycling through 3, 4, 5, 6 programs in a year because they're part of the solution. And then be fair. So a little bit of a tangent. We end up often, don't get mad at me, but we end up putting people in the wrong roles in the dealership. Would you guys agree with me on that? How many managers do we have that shouldn't be managing a human being ever, right? So when you are evaluating your culture, see if people are in the right roles. I had a really bad salesperson, but they had the greatest heart, and they were so driven that when I tried to identify what their skill set was, I went everywhere. I just wanted to get to know them. I got to know each of my teammates, And I found out that this kid has a real knack for video. So he had less of a goal that he had to hit each month, but then he had all these other things that he had to do for the dealership because that was strong, it is free, and it's someone that's bought in and loyal to the company. So identify the people for what they are, what their skill sets are, and put them in the right roles, and you'll see them thrive. And you'll get an insane amount of value for a dealership that is stuck to our rigid roles by creating these things where if they're in a monotonous, like the internet department is where I spent most of my time. And it's monotonous. I don't know if you guys have answered leads before, but it's like banging your head against a wall because a customer will fill out a lead and then pretend like they didn't, and it's all their information, and they'll slip up sometimes, and then it just kind of gets to you. By giving them little creative projects that they can work on in the interim, it really helps revive them a little bit. But then, once we've put these people in the right roles, make sure that the mission statement, the rules that we've made, the job descriptions, the expectations, those little things that we've put in place has to be fair for everyone. We cannot make excuses and have a toxic employee that's going in the opposite direction of everyone else end up pushing away quality employees and quality customers. Yes, he may be a 30-car guy, but how many customers is he churning through that we have slaved away at and spent a lot of money at to get them in the door? How many customers is he pushing away, or she pushing away? So when we're evaluating, make sure we evaluate fairly. We put people in the right roles, and when you give somebody a role that is a managerial role or a director role, give them the authority that goes along with it to make decisions and to be able to come up with creative solutions to you. But when we're doing it, let's be fair across the board, or else your culture is going to start to break. It's going to kind of create that toxic culture that people feel like they're not being heard again, or that it's being done unfairly. So this is my biggest vent point, and I think this is where I've seen the most impact. I work with dealers throughout the country, and I'm training them on internet teams, and my last team that I'm working with in California, they are so focused on, the team wants rules. I've never seen a team want rules before like this team. And just the simple parts of it being fair got them so excited and on board that they started outperforming what they were doing before, and we didn't even change much. It was just, here are the rules. If a customer works with this person and this amount of time has passed, simple little things can give them clarity and make them feel that they're protected too. And then you want to pace yourself in being social. You want to make sure that that culture is actually sticking, that it's truly who you are. You cannot take a message of who you want to be one day in the future and put it out there, because that customer is going to come in and they're going to experience something that is totally the opposite, and they're going to get social. So if you can fix these problems and really talk to your teams about who they are and how they're supposed to be, then take that information and make it social. Let your community see who you are, and share those employee accolades and birthdays and celebrations that you have. And then all the things that you're doing with the community. These are great ways to engage. People love this kind of stuff. This works a lot better than the 15th delivery picture or same looking vehicle that we posted in the same day. And the other thing that I really want to hit is, no matter what, be authentic. Be authentic to who you are. You can want to be the fun, quirky company, but if you are filled with salespeople that are a little bit more straight-laced, it's going to feel completely unnatural when someone comes in expecting that. I call it dealership DNA. Try to identify what is organically there. And this is a great way to really engage your front lines. Go talk to them. Identify what they're looking for and what they want to be a part of. When a person or a customer, an employee or a customer, feels like they're a part of something bigger, you can't pay for that kind of loyalty and easy free marketing, because they're sharing, they're engaging, they're feeling like they're part of it. So those are the big things that I think are ailing automotive dealerships today that affect culture. And it really just comes down to focusing on it and not thinking that it's just this pie-in-the-sky dream of affecting, or that it's less important than the sales you're making today. Because these things are really simple, right? I mean, for the most part, they're pretty easy to implement or even just start talking about. But at the end of the day, you're going to retain your customers, you're going to retain your employees, you're going to pay less in trying to find new ones. You're going to get some incredible ideas. When people feel like they're a part of something, they're going to come up with ways to get more customers, to get more publicity. Grassroots efforts of social media can go so much further than sometimes the advertising that we buy. Those things can get viral really quickly because people want to see and help real human beings. We have a negative connotation in this industry of being a salesperson. And I found that these kinds of tactics, these kinds of things to help a salesperson feel like they're a part of something, that they are heard, millennials want to feel like they are heard. By focusing on these things, they felt like they were a part of a bigger picture that ended up taking our dealership to places that we didn't think was possible for us. So I really encourage you, I hope that I have changed your mind in the fact that culture is just as important today than just focusing on our individual goals, because it ends up feeding each other. And that is all I have. Again, my contact information's up there. I end up helping all of my automotive friends in this space, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can get you any information.
All right, thank you very much, Subi. We really appreciate it. And making the trip out here to fill in. And what so much you talked about reiterated a lot of things that we had. I'm not sure you were here in time. We had a great presentation at the end of the day yesterday with a white bear involved in time when you're talking about the personality around a dealership. Obviously, if you're a luxury store in a metro market, maybe you don't need a bear falling through the ice or on it, that type of thing. But again, tying everything together, we're talking about the future, we're talking about digital marketing. We're going to continue the conversation around how it all ties together even with the phone. But again, it's just a single message from the dealership, so we appreciate you reiterating that.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much.